Hey nerds, Bevan here. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're talking about comic books. We're talking about Absolute Carnage. Now I don't do this a lot on my channel because I don't get to read a lot of current comic books. I usually wait and get them in trade paperback form. And I tend to stay away from the event books quite a bit. But Carnage being my favorite comic book villain, you know I had to read this. So I'm just going to do like a quick rundown of the series and give my thoughts and if I would recommend it or not. You're going to find out very quickly that I loved this comic book series. As a matter of fact, let's just get to that right now. I fucking love this book. It had me excited from front to back, like physically like, oh man, I got to read the next one. I don't think I've ever been so excited reading a comic book before, but this series, Absolute Carnage, kind of blew my mind. Before we get to Absolute Carnage though, we gotta talk about Cult of Carnage from the Web of Venom series. Now this was not written by Donny Cates, who wrote Absolute Carnage, but it is a tie-in. It's a bit of a prequel. I think there might be one other one-shot in between this book and that series. But I did read this before Absolute Carnage, and it sets up the story nicely. So in this book here, you see a couple of like FBI agents checking out the small town called Doverton. By the way, spoilers galore. I won't ruin the ending of the book though, but there's some stuff going on. I will be talking about plot points. There will be spoilers, but I won't ruin the ending for anyone who hasn't gotten there yet. So in this book, we find out that Carnage has run amok in this town called Doverton. I guess it also dates back to an older series called Carnage USA, which I have not read. But in this, you just get a bit of a background of what's been going on in Doverton. As the name suggests, there is a cult that Carnage is kind of in charge of, and they worship the symbiote god, which Donny Cates introduced to the Venom lore. I also have not read any of Venom. Like I said before, I don't read a lot of current modern day comic books. I will be throughout 2020, but for the last several years I have not. So I'm kind of reading this within a bubble of itself, although I do know a little bit of the background story because I've been following comics, I just haven't been reading them. So then we get into Absolute Carnage proper, and in this book we are not introduced to, but it kicks off with Eddie Brock and his kid, whose name I forget. Kid's name is Dylan. Doesn't know he's Eddie Brock's kid because that'd be pretty fucked up if you were Eddie Brock's kid, but he doesn't know in this book. And in this book, Carnage kind of like brings himself back into Eddie Brock's life. The Venom symbiote can like feel Cletus Cassidy and the Carnage symbiote going crazy throughout New York. But in this book, Carnage comes back into the whole picture after creating his cult of Carnage previously in Doverton. And Eddie Brock has to go to the one person he doesn't really want to, but the one person who can probably help him the most to understand the situation as best as possible. And that, my friends, Spider-Man. There's actually this really funny scene in issue 1 where Eddie Brock and Dylan are sitting in a cafe with Spider-Man, dressed as Spider-Man, not Peter Parker. And they go back and forth. Peter Parker does his usual funny thing, and it's good stuff. It's good stuff. He's recruiting Spider-Man. It's just good stuff. And then really, like issues 2, 3, and 4 are just like fight scenes, basically throughout the whole thing. We find out that every symbiote host has this thing called a codis inside of them. It's a piece of the symbiote left behind, and Carnage is going around and collecting them, which essentially means he's going to people who have had a symbiote before, and he's ripping out their spine. He's paralyzing them, killing them, ripping out their spine, gathering this codex, because that's just extra power for him. And the point of him gathering all these codices and all these symbiote pieces and getting all this extra power is to bring back the symbiote god, who I mentioned before. His name is Null. And I guess, and I'm assuming it's explained a lot more in the Venom series, I really can't say for sure, but Null is like the beginning of time, back before there was light or something like that. The super old, ancient being who created the symbiotes and is now like way out there in space in a moon planet, which is actually just a whole bunch of symbiotes held together, keeping him at bay from the rest of the universe. So that's Carnage's endgame, is to like create all this symbiotic energy and power to break Null free of his prison, to come and destroy Earth, because that's all Cletus Cassidy has ever wanted. He just wants to ruin life as we know it. So issues 2, 3, and 4 of this book are really essentially just one big long fight scene, and when Spider-Man and Venom figure out what Carnage's game plan is in getting all these symbiote codices, they go out and they get the big guns. Because in Marvel, a lot of people have had symbiotes. So these guys go out, they get Captain America and Wolverine and Thing, and they remove the codis themselves and have a way with it so that Carnage can't collect those. This is where we're going to get into like really twisty, turny spoilers, so if you don't want any more spoilers, I'm sorry, I'm going to be doing a lot of major stuff, but again, I'm not ruining the whole ending for you guys. So Cletus Cassidy, disguised as Eddie Brock, comes into this hangar where all the heroes are hanging out, and Wolverine and Wolverine and Thing and Captain America are kind of like MIA right now because they're recovering from the surgery they just had done at the hands of Bruce Banner, and the Venom symbiote is tired of Eddie Brock being a weakling, so he throws himself onto Bruce Banner, the Hulk, and becomes Venom Hulk. And here is your shot of Venom Hulk right there. Hopefully there's not too much glare and you can actually see it properly there. But they have, you know, a brawl. Venom Hulk versus Carnage, who has so much power after collecting all these symbiote codices. It's just like a knockout, drag out. I don't know what the terms are, but Carnage ends up kicking the shit out of Venom Hulk and takes the Venom symbiote into his own being and becomes this like, I don't know, unstoppable fucking monster, I guess. And then in the end, Eddie Brock figures out a game plan that gives him enough power to defeat Carnage. I'm not going to tell you how or what happens afterwards, but guys, this book is fucking crazy. I mean, let's just go through the covers and see how progressively wild they get. So here is a variant edition of #1, but it's pretty simple. You just got Carnage hanging out there. And here we have a bit of a team up. You got Venom there with Miles Morales, Spider-Man, with a couple of, these are like Carnage's little doppelgangers right there. Here you see Carnage absorbing a whole bunch of other Marvel heroes right into him there. Here we have a ridiculous, crazy shot of Venom. Like, what's he doing here? Absorbing Carnage, perhaps? I don't know. You got to read it and find out. And then issue #5 here is a whole bunch of Marvel heroes just going to war with a Carnage army. And in case you haven't figured it out, I love this book. It's crazy. Carnage is my #1 bad guy because his only motive is destruction and chaos. He's not trying to take over the world for power. He's trying to ruin and destroy the world for fun. If you haven't read this book, I strongly recommend you go out and do that right now. Donny Cates, in these 5 issues, has like reinvigorated my love of comic books. I've loved comic books for the last 11 years. I started reading them when I was 19 years old. And I went really strong for a long time, and then financial reasons, I couldn't get comic books as often as I wanted to. But like this mini-series, these 5 issues, have made me want to go out and get all the comic books. Don Cates is going to be continuing with Venom, which I may or may not jump into. I might go back and like read the first couple of volumes of that to see if the Venom stuff is what I want to get into. But he's also taking over the Thor line, which is crazy in itself because Jason Aaron wrote that book forever and was amazing. But I think Donny Cates might be the right guy to take over. So Thor #1 from Donny Cates drops in January. So I will 100% be picking that up. And hopefully doing more comic reviews for this channel. This was a really fun video for me to sit here and do for you guys. It was a hell of a fun book for me to read. I mean, like, look at that. Look at that. And like, I barely touched on the interior art, but like, look at this fight scene right here. All these fucking heroes and villains going crazy, going to war with Venom Carnage. So what did you guys think of the video specifically? Like, was this fun for you? Am I bringing too much energy? Like, I don't really get excited about things per se, but this book just like made me really, really passionate. And I want to talk more about comic books on this channel. So if you're into this kind of thing, you know, drop a comment below to let me know to keep talking about comic books like this. I will never pretend to be like a really good reviewer of comics, but I know what I like, and if it's something that I'm passionate about and excited about, I'll come on here and talk about it as long as you guys are cool with that. So if you dig on Carnage, hit that like button. And if you want to see more videos like this where I'm sitting here talking about a specific storyline here, again, I can't stop showing you these awesome covers for this book. But drop a comment below to let me know if you like this video, if you want to see more videos like this talking about comic book storylines, and then hit subscribe if you haven't already. It's almost Christmas time, so I hope you're all having a good December here. I'm about to take a break from work here next week and relax and catch up on sleep. I'm sorry that the videos are less frequent now. This whole 2 jobs thing is really hard, and like, I only get Monday evenings free in the week, and last week I didn't, so there was no video last week. There was actually, was there a video last week? I don't remember. My timeline is out of control. I can't keep track of anything right now. All I know is that I have about an hour left of my evening, so I'm gonna sign out for now, go make some pizza, and watch some wrestling. So don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Twitter at BevanBoydchuck, Facebook.com/BevanBoydchuck1, and until next time, folks. I'll see you next time, folks.